Our board discussion is the same as last. I'm sorry, I didn't send it to you. Same as last meeting, though refined.
Okay, gotcha.
So it should be ready for
And I
it.
attached a draft agenda inside.
Yep.
Board Docs, so
Thank you.
you're welcome.
It's 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Begin with Atlantic acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish peoples, specifically Nooksack and Lummi tribes, who have lived in the Salish Sea Basin, throughout the San Juan Islands and the North Cascades watershed from time immemorial. On behalf of everyone here, we want to express our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors, Nooksack and Lummi tribes, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Next up is pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up is approval of the agenda. Do we have any?
No changes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Motion to approve agenda is written. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good of the order. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are in our second of 3 weeks of extended school year, so we have our PK through 6 kiddos over at the ERC. And we have our 7th through 12 students over here in the 800 building. I just want to make sure we acknowledge that it's, there's great teaching staff, but also takes transportation, child nutrition, custodial maintenance to make sure that all happens. And today was a pretty fun day because we had some therapy llamas here on campus. So they were walking, a couple students walking the llamas around, and I was working away in my office, and sure enough, there was a llama in my face. Like they snuck in, and it honestly scared the daylights out of me. But it was really fun. Those kids loved walking those llamas around. So kudos to all that staff that's working this summer to give those kids those opportunities. So, yeah, so I got for good of the order.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Next up is consent agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
All those-
Second. All
Thank you.
those-
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I was a little ahead of you. Sorry. Information from audience. Anyone signed up, Tam?
No, no one signed up.
Would you like to speak?
No, I'm just here, just.
Okay, well, thank you so much for
Okay.
coming. See you. Information from board, so I'll start with you this time, Jason.
I don't really have a whole lot. I just want to throw out the information on August 9th and 10th. There's a Mount Baker Academic and Athletic Night at Deming Speedway. It's a fundraiser. Some money, there's a lot going on to raise money that goes to the school. So that's August 9th and 10th, just so everybody knows.
Well, I also want to thank you because you've been doing this for several years.
Yeah, it's been quite some time, probably our fourth or fifth one. So yeah, and it's I know they had a booster club meeting last night. It sounds like a lot of sports teams are getting together and making stuff, and there's gonna be a lot going on. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Jason. Brad?
No, it's been a pretty quiet summer for me so far.
Nothing for me today.
No comment from me.
Okay. Well, the only thing for me,
Particularly boring meeting to come to.
last night I attended the candidates night here at Mount Baker High School. And I had an opportunity to talk with both of two of our current state legislators on school finance issues, making more specific case on our MSOCs, particularly our insurance and utilities cost. And then we had a good conversation about special ed funding and how the differential between districts, there from everyone I've talked to who seems to know about it, there is a correlation at least between poverty level and special ed percentage or identification. that the higher poverty level, there's a higher special ed, for whatever reason, and I do not think that in our case it's over identification. I think that we try to do a good job. I'm sure there's always work that needs to be done, but so we did talk about how that is one way you could help districts such as ours that would not cost as much statewide. A dollar per student statewide costs about $1 million. Whereas if you target, if the average special ed identification level, say, is 15%, and the state currently pays for, say, 17%, or 6, I think it went up to 17. Then the addition from 17, 20, or in our case 22, wouldn't be as much. And I think I got through that message, as well as the discussion of so how do you prevent over identification? How does OSPI have a program in place to essentially audit the districts so that Bellingham doesn't say, oh, you're going up to 20, so we'll go from 15 to 20. And I have had that conversation with Chris Reckdahl before. And I think if WASA and WASA work closely with OSPI and really come up, work hard on it. Chris believes that they have methodology for ensuring that OSPI could keep track of that and keep on top of it. Then I think we have a chance to make our case in the legislature. So both Alex Remmel and Joe Timmons, who are the only current legislators there, said that they felt that the legislature is getting the concept that schools are going to need some attention this time around. And I think the more we hammer at it, and if we need to have a coordinated message, and we've got that, and we've got that list you saw of 4 top priorities, and if we encourage others as well as ourselves to communicate, and I think that legislators are particularly open to listening during campaigns. I mean, it's just human nature. But so that's my kind of plea, is to get that message across, so they don't just hear it from a couple of people.
Yeah.
So that I just appreciate that opportunity to try to get that across, and we continue to work on it. So next up is we have no action items. So we're at, and then you were, Nick, are you going to give a directors of finance report?
I'll do finance first, and I'll do the
And then
superintendent
a second.
second.
So we'll start with the director of finance.
Perfect, yeah. Ryan's getting some much needed time with his family, so I'm gonna pinch hit for him tonight. Screen share. So it's pretty typical update that we've seen before. Not as much action in summertime as there is in school year as far as expenditures goes. So those are our cash balances as of May 31st. Noting the general fund does include that loan from Capital Projects Fund. So remember that we also have the resolution passed that we need to get a tax anticipation note from the county. We can do that, but we'll make sure you guys know about it first. But as of right now, we're looking, knock on wood, we're looking pretty positive where we're at.
Meaning we won't need a loan from the county.
We're hoping, yeah, it's looking healthier than we anticipated. We've also been doing things pretty conservatively, so that way we can hopefully find more happy surprises than unhappy surprises. Yeah. Sorry, Ed, still no bus delivery.
What the heck?
I'll let you know when it comes in.
So Jason, you said you've got a pretty good estimate of that.
Yeah, we just got a deal today for cop cars that we ordered quite some time ago, and they're not even starting production till September 9th.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
The debt service fund, that amount will cover we have one last LGO payment in December, so that will cover the interest. And then the principal from that last LGO payment in December will come from our capital levy collection that's closing up this current capital levy before the new one starts. Not much change here, because FTE is not going up or down right now. Our average annual FTE for last year was 1505, which shows that we did get a little bit above that. Even though we ended the year at 1495, our average for the year was 10 above that. So we must have had some higher months in there. But again, comparing it to where we budgeted, that was the challenge, is having an adopted budget with
But the budget for next year is
1448.
1448.
Yeah, so we're feeling pretty good going into September that we compare kindergarten to seniors, right? And we're hoping to start right around that 1500 mark, and with a budget of 1448, hopefully we'll be able to fix things quicker. So
So along the enrollment line, what's our current number enrolled in transitional kindergarten?
good question. Last time I checked with Bridget, which was about a week ago on that, it's anywhere between, I think 14, maybe 15. The target number for that right now is 17. But what we found traditionally with our newer families with the youngest learners is sometimes you forget to register until you see the yellow buses driving down the road. So there's a chance we're pretty happy with being at 14 right now this time of the year. So we're looking at the potential of adding that transitional kindergarten class at Acme. And again, that's a cost neutral thing because the state funding will cover the cost of the staff FTE. So I'll keep you updated on that too.
I did mention the likelihood that we would do that to our legislators last night, and Joe Timmons would like to be invited if we're able to.
Yeah.
Accomplish that to actually, once we get up and running, to see it in action. And he serves on the House Education Committee, so it's valuable to have his understanding of that.
Yep, certainly. Revenue collected, as you can see, the orange bar just keeps getting closer to the gray bar as we, the end of our fiscal year is August 31st. So that's why we got those last two spots there. Expenditures as a total part of projected. Ideally we're gonna not get to, the top of that expenditure bar because we've made a lot of changes this year that we hope even midstream, we're gonna curb some expenses. So we'll be monitoring that one closely. Revenue, year-to-year comparison, we are collecting a little more revenue because of the increase, costs of things as far as the state compensating a little bit for that, but clearly, so not enough. And this is the graph that I'm, I know we've had to make a lot of hard changes, like I said, even midstream and going into next year, but this is the graph that I feel like this is where we can kind of pat ourselves on the back, the fact that we're spending $1 million less than this time last year. And that includes the cost of how much things have gone up, right? So if you compensate for, inflation, I think the entire district is working and paying close attention to where those savings can occur.
So does that mean that we should expect to end the year at about $1 million less than what we spent last year?
Hopefully, yeah.
And what did we spend last year?
Total, I don't have that number with me, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna be probably right around, I'm looking at this chart here, anywhere up between 33, 34, I would think.
Yeah, because like you said before, our expected revenue or expenditure for the year was 34.7 million. So maybe that means we'll end at 33.
Yeah.
So is the 34 million anticipating the 1 million reduction in expenditure compared to the previous year?
No, I don't think it is. No, because when that budget was adopted for projected expenditures, we weren't, I think, because that was, I'm trying to remember the timeline as far as things, this budget for projected expenditures was pre-Brian, that's what we did with Steve, I think. And so that way it wouldn't be reflective of those changes yet.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how we end our fund balance with that in mind then.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. Okay, I guess I'm just curious if there's been any other significant changes in expenses or revenue since.
yeah, there's, kudos to Ian Linterman, he worked really hard on some additional revenue through safety net from OSPI that helped replace some more special education costs. So I think that was higher than we expected revenue wise. But really, there's not much change we can do to revenue, other than some grants. So really what we've been focusing on is more of the expenditure changes. Revenue to expenditure, it's, as Brian noted there, it's a short apportionment month. And we also have so not only is apportionment shorter in this month, we also have to repay that apportionment in advance, right? So this short green June is because of that tall green October. So if that makes sense. We just needed the money ahead of time to stay cash positive. Yeah, and this is, pretty similar to what we just saw there, that for the most part, our expenditures have stayed pretty consistent. It's the revenue that changes, and that's just the way the state develops their apportionment schedule. Other questions?
Anyone else?
No.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I will transition now to the superintendent report. Just a couple topics tonight, one of which is some changes that I want to make sure everyone listening at home and listening here is aware of for Title IX regulations. Those were updated in June and had a new start date of August 1st. Most of us, when we think about Title IX regulations, we simply think about sports and representation in sports, which is a very important component of it. But really some of the bigger changes with Title IX were around any kind of sexual harassment or sexual misconduct in the school or the workplace. So those changes go into effect August 1st. And so I just want to make sure people are aware that we're going to put every employee through mandatory retraining for Title IX. That'll be built into their back to school time with some module learning asynchronously. I am our Title IX coordinator for the district. So I've just recently done my research, and then we're actually gonna have Bridget Rossman go through her certification in September as well. So there'll be two of us trained as investigators if we need to make sure we're compliant with all Title IX updates. So just making sure everyone's aware of those changes.
Federal.
Yep. Yeah.
law?
And so that's the, like I said, every component of Title IX is so important and is there for a reason. However, what I've noticed is it's one of the things that changes the most with what administration is in the White House, quite frankly, because there were changes in 2020, there are changes again in 2024. We'll see what happens in November, and there'll probably be changes, perhaps maybe not in 2028, or maybe there will be. Just it depends on what the administration feels and kind of, the biggest changes this time around were around traditionally it's been around sexual harassment and sexual misconduct, but now it's also includes any kind of sexual discrimination. So discrimination based on gender or gender expression. So that's the newest layer there. The other piece too is around who's considered under your control as a district. So that umbrella has gotten a lot wider. Whereas, we would say perhaps a volunteer here, or no, even less common than that, like a parent on our campus used to not have to be, if there was a Title IX investigation, that wouldn't fit under that. However, now if, let's say there's a parent on our campus that makes a sexual harassment, makes some kind of sexual misconduct comment towards someone, that now falls under our Title IX purview, which it didn't before. So that's kind of the bigger change. So yeah.
Are we gonna have some policies that we're supposed to
look at? I would imagine within the coming months, WASDA will come out with some policy changes that will, if you look at our Title IX policy and procedure, it's the longest procedure we have, and it's one that I've become pretty versed in, but we'll see some updates to those for sure. On a much lighter, more positive note, Brian met with Apollo Solutions. They're an ESCO consultant to tour of our district to help us come up with a list of eligible items for an application with the Small Schools Modernization Grant, which is, some of you may have heard, that changed from 10 million, being able to apply for 10 million, being able to apply for 12 million, but where it's most important to Mount Baker is it changed from being under 1,000 students FTE to being under 3,000 students FTE. So we now are able to apply for it. And we did some reference checks on Apollo Solutions, and we're happy with what we heard from both Darrington and Nooksack. So Brian spoke very highly of their tour last week.
Would it be worth it to talk to an additional ESCO company just to get a second
Yeah,
company?
certainly. And I think that's what, Brian has been, Brian and I both met with Tex Laddish, who's out of the ESD in Anacortes, and he's been a longtime consultant for the district, and he's someone who can help us with that to make sure we're getting the best outcome for.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get 2 or 3 companies that are interested in doing that work for us and talk to them and kind of compare them and
Yeah.
see what the best deal is for
Certainly.
us.
Yeah.
So specifically, what services is Apollo offering?
Yeah, so what they will offer is, they'll help write the grant for us pro bono. Because their hope and desire is that then when we go out for bid, they'll be a part of that process where they'll manage a lot of our projects. They'll sub some of them out, but some of them they'll do in-house. So it's what I think ultimately they're hoping that we'll select them as a project manager for this. Because the first step is we apply, if we get approved, we receive a planning grant, in which case they would hope that we would choose them to help plan. And that's where they would start getting some of their compensation.
So how does that fit with our architectural firm?
Raluda, yeah, I would have to check on that one, because this relationship with Apollo is actually managed through Washington State Department of Enterprise Services. So that's where because DES already does all of those requisitions for bid, we can work with DES directly, as far as they've already done those requisitions that we're required to. Yeah, I can check about how they work with Raluda.
Okay, so I'm just thinking to approach it like we would any other type of construction job where you almost treat them like a contractor, right?
Yep.
Like but you're doing a rep, so if we got one good option, great. If we have more than one, then that would be great as well.
So they would contract through the state.
Yep.
As opposed to the way we've traditionally done our own contracts and then had recently for most of them, Tex be project manager and we've had alluded to the architectural component. So I think, as far as your question of how does this compare with other options, that would be one of those other options to run it along side by side. And that's why I say if touching bases with Raluda in regard to this would be, I think, worthwhile.
Yeah, they may know of another company that provides similar services as well.
Yeah.
I almost think of them like a general contractor, right?
Yep.
They're gonna come in and have a whole design team and construction team. So.
Yep. Yeah, because our hope is to maximize the amount of work and outcome of this $12 million and not be paying too much in management or indirect costs, right? Because the desire here is that if we can get enough items taken off of our levy and filled with this grant, then it can stretch our capital levy that much further. So.
So what were some examples that you've seen that get paid for with this type of program?
Sure, yeah, HVAC replacement, one of the top priorities is fixing the siding at Acme, which is pretty expensive, and so that fits under this as well. Another piece is the roof at Harmony, so that would fit under this as well. So those are some pretty big ticket items that we can check those. Oh, window replacement in the 800 building. Yeah, those are some items that we get checked off pretty quick, and that is gonna free up capacity. And, you know, hopefully showing our commitment to the voters and taxpayers that we are working to, you know, we're so grateful they committed to us, but we're gonna do the best we can to stretch their tax dollars.
So, you know, when you mentioned, you know, not wanting to pay too much for the fees for management, that's why it's good to have multiple bids so that you can negotiate
Yeah,
for that.
I think that's where our strong relationship with Tex,
Yeah.
the ESD will be helpful.
Well, I think there's a balance to strike there though, because there is a value to high quality construction management. There's a skill involved. Years ago, even before I was on the board, we tried to do major construction work here with basically administrators who were educators doing the construction management. And we ended up, when I first started on the board, having to deal with a number of change order requests as a result. And being a contractor myself, a change order is usually, unless it's like a remodel and you find something that wasn't there, a change order is a failure in your either the architectural or the construction management. And it's contractors bid on potential change orders because there it's a sole source. You can get a lot more money off a change order than a competitive bid. And so I think it's a situation where you have to balance that understand that you have a definite skill that's associated with that construction management.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that same arena, Brian and I had a chance to meet with our maintenance crew this last week to make sure they're kind of up to date on this process too. You know, they're doing a great job keeping things fixed and cleaned. And so yeah, as we met with them, we also started talking about, you know, as the planned staffing changes coming up and how we can best support them with the structure of management and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been kind of as the summertime is, definitely a buildings and operations and maintenance focus. So that's what I have for my superintendent's report.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
So board discussion, retreat planning, let's see, did we send around the?
Yep, that was in board docs, that's correct.
So Nick and I met to kind of go over what we had, the areas of that we had talked about at our previous meeting and put those in order and flesh that out a little bit. We can go through these one by one. So the board self-assessment review. See, Brenna, did you do that before?
I've done it before.
Did you do that, Ed?
I don't know, we might have done it at the beginning of the year.
Okay, because it's when we did a WASDA self-assessment, it's an online tool, and each board member can do it at their leisure at home, and then WASDA coalesces that and gives us back a report that then is a stepping stone for discussion. And so Nick will agreed to get the to follow up on finding the right self-assessment. And have you had a chance?
So yeah, I was gonna wait till this discussion today. If you guys are committed to this, then I'll reach out to WASDA on Monday and you'll receive in your school district emails the self-assessment piece. And like Russ said, they'll come back together and we'll get a kind of a color-coded report to review together at the retreat in August.
So last time, I think we just got a link, you click on the link and find and
Yeah.
do the assessment.
Yep.
But I felt it was useful last time.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and we're all, it's a new board.
Yeah,
I mean, so far we've worked really well together, so this will be good to know.
And WASA does recommend it get done yearly. so-
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know
We've had
how
a
long,
lot going on.
I know,
okay?
how long does it take for your part? Do you remember?
It's not super long. I mean,
Okay.
it depends on how.
Yeah.
Thoughtful.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 20-minute-ish
Yeah.
or something like that. What?
I can't even, I think you just pick things. I don't remember if you have to write anything or not.
To me, it looks like it's like you kind of like scoring the board.
Yeah.
It'll give you a category and
Mhm.
maybe you say like 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like to me.
but it is a lot. It's
A lot of categories.
Yeah, a lot of categories, but it's, not like 2 hours, right?
So what's the time frame that we should be watching for that?
Yeah, I mean, once I hear back I'll email them on Monday. Once I hear back, I'll send you guys an email that says they've confirmed. And then hopefully you'll get it by the end of next week, which will give you a couple weeks to fill it out.
So yeah, just with that one, just look for it. And then meeting calendar, that would be. Let's see, we have this. They share the annual, I think a draft of a Mount Baker School Board annual calendar. So, there's a number of items on here, and then the intention is for the discussion to kind of flesh that out and looking at basically board review of elements of the strategic plan on a monthly basis. So we would pick, like, we want to cover this element of the strategic plan, in November, say. And so that would be pulling out from the strategic plan, what are the elements that we think would fit into an annual calendar that we want to focus on a monthly basis. And so that would, one of the values of doing that is then we give the administration time to pull together the data, the resources, the people that are appropriate for that particular part of the strategic plan. So I think, and Ed had brought this up as a way of making sure that we keep on top of really that review of the strategic plan and review of district operations. And I think it'd be worthwhile trying this out, and I think it's gonna be a useful tool for us. So.
I agree. What I really appreciate, Ed, about your thinking is that, our strategic plan is often something that sits on the shelf and collects dust.
Right.
So I really appreciate that concept of, if you map it out, then we're all gonna hold each other accountable for its review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see the discussion kind of surrounding, so let's define what are the elements we want to cover, because you could make 35 different discussions out of strategic plans. So we have to be strategic in what elements. So I think that would be the meat of our discussion on the calendar.
Sounds good.
Even more so than what month fits where, because I think some of that's figuring out around with administrative staff and the flow of data and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts on the calendar? So we do also, in addition to to what this would be a review of elements of the strategic plan, we also do monthly finance and enrollment reports, and this wouldn't supplant that. We would still keep those going. So teaching and learning, academic success. graduation rates and increasing enrollment. So you did speak with Bridget about.
Yeah, so Bridget's gonna be joining us for that hour of time where she'll be sharing with you kind of some of our strategies for this upcoming year, and really, you know, a big focus that we're gonna have is we're very grateful it's been a hands-on team approach to balance the budget, but what we really need is our greatest educators. I mean, they're the ones who are teaching the kiddos. We need them to hopefully remain focused on that. So we're just gonna talk a little bit about some frameworks that are gonna help us with those conversations to remain focused on the teaching and learning, as well as the measures that we're gonna use to see how that's going. So she can talk a little bit about again, those frameworks, talk about a little bit about the assessment schedule, and how we will share some of that data with you guys to monitor how those steps and those levers are working.
We have an idea of where the class sizes are going to be larger than normal, like either in the elementary schools or different.
Yeah, I would venture to guess probably 4th through 12th. Yeah.
Mhm.
The exception in high school will be in some of the more specific classes like advanced ceramics or some of the higher level language stuff, right? Where there's just not as many folks interested.
Seems like that's where the support structures should be
Mhm.
identified. Oh, this class is gonna have, 35 kids in it or whatever.
Mhm.
Let's see what we can do to
Yeah.
help in that situation.
Mhm.
Just feels like that's where the most stress is gonna come from.
Mhm. Yeah,
for this
certainly.
outcome.
So some of the notes I had written down for this one is the question, how is Bridget's role evolving? And one change going forward is Bridget will be taking on the role of principal evaluation, which I think is something that's kind of been needed for quite some time, is to have her role have some concrete some duties that rather than working alongside and recommending we do this, recommending do that, having that
Yeah,
some
that's exactly right.
say in the chain of command, so to
Yep.
speak. So a little bit of understanding from Bridget how that role is evolving. And then touching on teacher evaluation tools. We've been I think did you mention that Brian, that's his doctoral dissertation?
That's what my doctoral dissertation on is, the effectiveness of Washington State's teacher evaluation system. So I'll be researching that for next year. Yeah.
So I don't expect the conversation to kind of go into, so what we do and what we should be doing, but to touch on, just bring up the fact that there's more than one tool to use, and how the interaction between the tool you use, the effectiveness of the evaluation, the time that it takes, how it works in the teacher's workload, and also teaching improvement in teaching methods or collaboration for that matter. So I think just introducing the subject to the board at this time so that we know what we might be expecting to hear further down the road. We spent quite some time discussing our current Tilda Marzano. We spent probably a couple of years or a year and a half working on that, and so we with a lot of staff input on that. So I expect something along that order to, if we are to entertain the idea of changing the methodology. But now we should be able to at least critique our current one, what works, what doesn't work. But it's something that's been in place for, I'm gonna guess 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
And it's put a big workload on the principals, and whether you've got a much better idea than I do in its value.
Yeah.
So
And that's where Brian's dissertation comes in. His is on the evolving role of the principal. So, yeah, because You know, before TPEP became what it was, you could have a halftime principal at Acme and halftime principal at Maple Falls because they didn't have to fill out such thorough evaluations, right? There's a lot of, the evaluations are meant to be growth tools, so there's a lot of power to them, but also it's a lot of work.
And then, you know, that's on the academic success, so graduation rates and increasing enrollment are two other components of that. That discussion. Any other thoughts on the teaching and learning part, or what you hope to see?
It might be helpful, we don't have to write this in the document, but just to remember that graduation rate and retention are two sides of the same coin, right? And retention is tied to enrollment. So we don't want to just think about graduation as a measure of success, but also as a measure of a funding stream.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Good point.
And then discussion of search of permanent superintendent. Kind of what I think we need to start that with our statement from must have been last fall, to our statement of what our process would be, and then kind of look at that and reiterate as far as that, you know, I think I don't know that, but and then look at who the search consultants out there are, and start to get thinking. I mean, we're not at the point where we would choose a consultant, but we need to be thinking, what are the elements that we're going to be looking for in a search consultant for a superintendent search? And I mean, we can discuss whether we want a search consultant or not. However, I wouldn't recommend going without it. But you know, it's certainly always a possibility we could be out shaking the trees ourselves. But I think we wouldn't. I mean, if you look at just the volunteer search consultant for the interim process there, how we couldn't have replicated that. So it's a service that from people who keep really close tabs on the skill that's there and the availability. And also it separates the board and gives a chance for that search consultant to have frank conversations without it being with the board. So I think there's, I personally wouldn't suggest wasting time on that decision. So.
We'll talk about it in August.
What's that?
We'll talk about it in August.
Yeah,
Time to think about it.
yeah, think about it, and
I think maybe you said this already, but we plan to give an update to the community on the timeline and the steps involved with that, probably in September, I think, would agree.
Yeah, it would be
Just
nice
saying.
if we could leave the retreat
With the timeline.
with a timeline
yeah,
that then we could share out, so that folks, when the folks that have been away for the summer come back, that can be messaged out with that welcome back, so that there is a time for wondering.
Yeah,
For the empty space to get filled.
yeah.
Yeah.
With rooms.
Yeah, that's right.
Really worry.
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, I think that's very doable to in that block of time to look at the elements that we have already said we were going to do, and then make and turn that into a timeline statement. And then what, I think one of the most important parts of our discussion is this, the school board and superintendent relationship. And I asked Nick to look for WASDA's and I don't know if you took this, you may have done this, Brennan, we did several years ago. WASDA had a list of scenarios of circumstances that it's like story problems in math, but it's scenarios of the issues that come up. Is this a board issue? Is this a superintendent
yeah.
issue, or is it a shared decision? And it was, I thought it was a good way to, it didn't take an awful lot of time, but it was a good way to look at that differential and really hone in on whose role what.
Was that with the Tammy lady? The other.
And I think this was predated Tammy Campbell.
Oh, yeah.
This was
Oh, then
something
that
we
would be-
did
but I do
at,
remember something.
we did it at a WASA regional meeting that was held. It was either a regional meeting or a special meeting just for this at ESD in the Annapolis area.
We did that activity in our onboarding.
Oh, you did?
Oh,
Just
okay, that's
this
what I
last
remember.
November, I
Okay.
did that activity for
Did you
onboarding.
find it useful?
I did find it really useful because there were a few where it felt like, well, which way could it go?
Yeah.
So I think that could be very helpful.
But yeah, I think the benefit is doing it all together so that with the superintendent, so that you sort of jointly understand at the same, together what those, and have a chance to discuss those. So we're all on the same page.
Would you happen to have, I reached out to WASDA, I don't know if they sent me exactly what I was asking for. Do you have a copy of yours still?
I could look,
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you've got that.
probably, I mean,
Just
not
here.
not in here, not in
She's
here,
got
in a
everything.
different notebook. I had to divide it into a second notebook,
Oh, good.
yeah.
You see how much paper I have.
I will look for that,
Thank you.
yeah.
Good. So then, a few other things that Nick and I discussed. One is, I think it would be good for us to hear from Nick his leadership philosophy. Both with the board, our interaction, the interaction with the board and the staff. And I did bring up how we previously worked with, and I don't think we actually accomplished what we intended on the discussion of surrounding distributed leadership, sharing leadership with the expertise that you have in your whole system. But I think bringing that into the discussion is useful, and maybe we got a chance to actually get somewhere with that.
I guess that was kind of what I was thinking about when we were talking about meeting with the principals.
Sure.
That kind of fits in.
Yeah.
Vision.
Right.
philosophy.
You start to do it, I'll do it 2 times, so you. Some of you will be repeat, but
Yeah.
you'll be able to see.
No, I think you're entirely right, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, was let's have that discussion with our board and with Nick. And then we'll be more paired really for a repeat of that, but it's different than a repeat because it's with the other leaders.
Mhm.
Right.
It's how are you actually with this group going to make that work? Which is very different than just the 6 of us discussing.
Do you feel like that's too abstract?
No,
Or is it-
no,
Okay.
that's what I've been doing and thinking about since I became an educational leader. So,
Okay.
yeah, definitely it'll be a great opportunity to be able to put it into, to be able to articulate it and have
Yeah.
discussions around it.
There's some high level, philosophy and then there's the practical
Yeah,
application and how that gets carried out.
yeah,
Kind of good to connect both those.
yep, because that way you can kind of say, oh, this is,
What that means as an example.
yeah,
like,
exactly.
I believe in, good communication, and here's some
Mhm.
examples.
I'm just gonna throw an idea out here, and maybe the two of you already talked about this when we were fleshing out the draft of the retreat agenda. But it would be helpful, I think, as a board member, to hear from you as a new superintendent,
Mhm.
what would be helpful for you in terms of support from the board. Did you already wrote that down?
You were reading my.
I was, this is right over there.
No, I totally agree, and that's, yeah. Yeah, what the board, what support we need from the superintendent, but it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that can include things you wouldn't want us to do.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
right? I think that's important to, and then I guess too, as a board, I mean, we're a collective, but then we're also individuals.
Mhm.
And as a superintendent, you're,
Figuring everybody out.
learning everybody, and so it might be useful for us to talk as individuals about what we see our role as, to help give you some transparency.
Yeah.
In knowing how to read us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's great.
So the other thing and Nick had brought this up, when we first did our hiring discussions with, midstream superintendent evaluation discussion, how am I doing? And so what frequency, kind of a framework for that, I think, if we have time, it would be good to at least touch on that, because I think that's gonna be one of the things that makes or breaks this year, is having that communication.
Well, that should be on the calendar.
That's a good idea,
That's the idea.
yeah.
So we don't forget.
That's on my calendar, I tell people if it's not on there, it's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. Not only is it not on there, but do I have alerts?
Yeah.
To nag me?
And another thing I really feel strongly about is tightening up district operations. I will say I was very dismayed that we were either late or just about late on recertifying the Acme septic system. That should not happen. You have to have a central list of all the things that have to be done by the dates, and there's the nuts and bolts of running the district that have, it's different than academic success, but it's just as necessary to making our district function. So
Don't we need some sort of software to track, at least with building maintenance?
Yep, yeah, and it definitely has the potential to track that kind of stuff as well.
So that should be, or should
Yep.
have been.
Yep.
Folded in there.
Yeah, so, and we're actually meeting with, a few of the district employees are meeting with, the health department, next Tuesday to get this work started, to make sure that the year-long scope and calendar is known, because you're exactly right, Russ, that especially in our schools where our the health department relies on, right, if that doesn't pass, and the health department will let you serve food, without food, we can't have school.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what your teaching and learning goals are, if we can't serve food, we can't have kids.
Yeah. Similar concept with the septic system.
Yeah.
And Nick has previously mentioned to us the idea of an 0.2 increase for Shannon Richardson to take on some of these tasks. And that's part of that discussion. So what specific role that would entail and what that would accomplish? Because I think it's something you can't let slip.
Well, now that that's public information, yeah.
What's that?
Was it, that's public information now, so, was that something that you're working on?
Yeah, yeah,
Or is
yeah.
that-
You mean the septic?
No, about Shannon.
Oh,
It's,
No,
a-
we-
I sent it in your board update this week, and I've had conversations with her.
Okay, good.
So yeah, it's a part of the next steps that we chat with the maintenance team about how that organization works. You know, because I know she's not gonna be able to be as hands-on as our former director was, but she's got strong organizational skills that will help us support that
Right.
team and stay organized.
Great, I'd be really excited about seeing that happen. I think
Yeah.
it would be pretty cool.
Right.
But, you know, I guess the point is, as a system, making sure that we have our systems in place for success.
Mhm.
And we have enough checks on that to make sure that it's, those important elements that need to be done
Mhm.
are not left to just one person.
Yeah.
You know, it's,
And hopefully you've seen that I'm kind of a guy that leans heavy into systems, so I definitely endorse that concept.
well, other things you'd like to see on that board and superintendent relationship discussion? I think we packed in.
That'll be good. It's not a lot of time,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
yeah, we gotta keep it rolling.
that's your job that day,
Gonna
right?
be
though?
on you.
You're the
I'm gonna be on you.
timekeeper, right?
The
Yeah.
task.
Yeah, you're the
Yes,
task
manager.
man,
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, to give you a chance here now in the preparation time to prepare some documents, like, you know, here's my leadership
Yeah.
philosophy, so, you know, rather than say, start from scratch, I've got one page, I've got 2 pages, and this kind of says it, the essence of it, that will make, on each of these aspects, would give us something to go away with and also facilitate covering that much in that short time.
Mhm.
That'll be good.
Do we want to see those documents before we meet so that we're not spending our time reading them during the
Yeah, that-
retreat?
Sure.
What,
Beginning of the week, or
That can give enough time.
Yeah,
it would just, I mean, cause it's a meeting day that day anyway, so you have to have the agenda
Mhm.
already, so you just get it all at the same time.
we could, for our next board meeting, that will be before the retreat, have at least, if some of those documents are ready, we could get kind of a free look in our board discussion.
by
So
the
we get a little head start. Cause
Let's
looking
get-
this over, I think it's a pretty big, what's that?
Yeah, no, anything, I don't know, I think just a week before is plenty.
Okay,
If we wanted to try to do like maybe the board, self-assessment by the next meeting and go over some of that before there, or any documents that would pertain to that, but I don't think asking Nick to put all of that together
okay.
in 2 weeks, I don't think that's,
We could
Yeah,
talk in our board discussion about what we would want in the agency, the
search.
search.
Somebody is ready to discuss the search.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say it's either the search or we do the assessment and have part of that, but we can start the search thing. Look at the people the list of the finders that we were looking
The
at, and then the
consultants.
consultants and the finders. The searcher, and then maybe narrow that down, and then we would know going into the meeting that this is the search. The finders we're gonna go with, and then we would have that already taken care of, so we wouldn't even have to talk about that at the meeting. And that would be a good jumping off point. I would say getting some of that out of the way would be better by the next meeting.
Okay. So that would mean, so for our next board meeting, you would like to have the board discussion focus more on the search.
I think so. What do you guys think?
Okay.
I
that's.
think, I
our
also
most
think it would free up some
pressing thing.
space on that retreat time to,
Right.
since it was pretty tight before.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that idea.
And I like that that conversation then is at a regular meeting where people might be attending.
Sure.
Right, that
Yeah.
that's more,
Yeah.
get that conversation going with the public.
Yeah.
Having access to that.
And then focusing more on the timeline during the,
And you know, the
During
way
the
that we
retreat.
talk, I could see the board discussion being like we're just throwing out ideas.
Mhm.
And then we go into the retreat and start to really hone some of that down.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like what do we want the process to look like? What do we want a search consultant to be able to do for us or, yeah.
Mhm.
That'll be good.
Yeah, and I think any of us who've either been through the search process or have attended any of the WASDA sessions on search consultants, you get kind of a picture of what the superintendent search consultant does. And they will help lead the community input meetings, the staff input meetings. And so it's not just finding superintendent candidates, but it's also interaction with the staff and public.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
Is that a plan?
so Nick, that would mean trying to get what materials we can on the consultants, including whatever blurbs they have, including their other searches, reference,
Sure.
the normal thing that they would provide. Meeting schedule, I believe our next meeting is August 8th.
I'll be away.
Is that,
I said I'll be away.
are you you'll miss that one?
I will.
Are
I'm
you
not
going
sure
to do
what,
something fun?
I'll be on vacation.
Yeah, you're not.
But I'll see. I don't know what the plans are that week, because I can't
Don't Zoom, come on.
Are you
Don't
going
send- you
back?
could just send some notes,
send
Yeah.
some notes.
like send a few notes of what you remember from those WASDA sessions that we went to
Yeah.
about search consultants and what stood out to you, and then we'll have your thoughts.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't worry about that.
unless you really want to be a
I'm-
part of the
yeah.
conversation.
Right.
Are you trying to get away from your family?
Somebody go in here.
Yeah.
Get a friend to call, please.
Okay, so, and then we have our August 14th meeting with, let's see, 14th is with the principal.
You got it, 8 to 9.
14th.
Did I start myself up?
I think there's gonna be 4 due there.
All four of us are?
Yeah.
I think I signed me up for that.
And then, the, back to the school year, so all staff meeting, what day is that?
That will be on the 26th,
26th,
8 AM.
August
26th.
26th?
Yep. Yeah, we just let Tammy know if you're going, so we can make sure.
So-
Seat's safe for you.
With that,
Make sure you let Tammy know, please, if you're gonna show up, so that we can list it. If there's 3 or more of you, we wanna make sure it's listed as a public.
okay,
And is that
That's the
in-
back to school thing for the.
Yeah.
And where
the
the
big
big
meet?
in the auditorium?
Yeah, we're gonna be in the auditorium this year. Doing a little bit different this year.
Yeah,
Nope,
I don't want to stand up in front of them.
that was already in the agenda, so. I'm just kidding. We don't have.
and,
to.
and if you are able to attend, if you would like to give a brief welcome.
Only that's for the president.
Yeah,
President
I'm always happy to do that, but I just want to make sure everyone feels like they're welcome to.
This is for the back to school.
What's that?
kickoff?
Yeah.
Okay.
And how long do the board typically stay for that? I imagine you meet all day with stuff.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
will probably
It's not very long at all.
Not very long,
like
no. Yeah,
15
15 minutes.
Oh, we're only there for 15 minutes?
Yeah, it's pretty short and then people traipse off. Well, you can shake hands afterwards and kiss babies.
Oh,
No, I
26.
don't need to do that.
The typical.
But there's gonna be some more built-in social breaking bread time than historically, so the actual program won't start at 8, but you're more willing to show up at 8 so you can chat with colleagues and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
August 26th, yeah.
Yep.
And somebody help me with those.
Yeah, you betcha.
On steps.
There is the ramp, like, back door here.
There is a ramp.
Well, then you'd have to walk all the way around the building.
Oh, okay.
Just take the shortcut.
Can wait here.
We just really zoomed through that.
Out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was looking at the clock.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed public comments. I realized you guys already blazed through that in like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'll be back next month.
Yeah.
To talk
Well,
about
thank
Title
thank
IX
you
now.
for coming.
Talk about Title IX regulations, you guys are gonna get loaded. It's just, it's so heavy. I know you, Superintendent mentioned it briefly, but it's very loaded. It's gonna cause a lot of division in the community, especially with athletics and sports.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. We had already gotten past that.
I
part of the
know, I
agenda, so-
realized that,
Yeah.
but I was taking notes because I'm like, I'm fired up about the Title IX regulations. I was an athlete all my life, so.
So, I
Stay
think,
health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you guys going to executive session now?
No, we were just waiting for Brenna.
Oh, okay. I was like, maybe I need to leave.
Okay.
My car keys.
okay,
Chatting.
so that finished the meeting schedule. Upcoming meetings. We have no executive session issues this evening, so meeting's adjourned.
Thanks for waiting for me.
Well, I wanted to give you a chance to add something to the meeting schedule.
No, I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
She had questions.